Hello, in this laboratory, we'll observe the histology slide of digestive tract. Objectives: identify the light microscopic structures of digestive tract, including esophagus, pharyngeal part of stomach, duodenum, jejunum, ileum, colon, and appendix. First slide: esophagus, obtained from the section of esophagus HE staining. On the histology slide, 2 of the 4 layers of the esophagus are visible, mucosa and submucosa. When we look at the histology slide, it can be seen that mucosa of the esophagus is lined by non-characterized stratified squamous epithelium. Underneath the non-characterized stratified squamous epithelium is the laminar propria. There is a muscularis mucosae at the boundary of the mucosa and submucosa. Notice the mucous glands in the submucosa, and connective tissue, blood vessel, will be present. The muscularis of the esophagus is made of both striated muscle and smooth muscle. Adventitia is connective tissue that merges with connective tissue of surrounding structures. Some of the esophagus is covered by a C-SOFA. The muscularis and adventitia are not visible on the slide. The second slide: pharyngeal part of the stomach, obtained from the section of the pharyngeal part of stomach HE staining. Referring to the stained characteristics of esophagus section, please identify the mucosa and submucosa of the stomach. Between them is the red stained muscularis mucosae. The muscularis and seropha are not visible on the slide. The focal point for observation is mucosa, which is also divided into 3 layers. The inner layers is simple columnar epithelium, which invaginate to form gastric pits. The epithelial cells are arranged orderly and the cell boundary is clear. The top of the cells, which is filled with mucosa granules in living condition, appears transparent and light stained. The nuclei are ovoid and in the cellular base. Next to the epithelium is the laminar propria, which contains a large number of gastric glands. The connective tissue of the laminar propria is small in quantity and situated between the gastric glands, which open into the gastric pits. The gastric glands may present longitudinal, oblique, or cross section, and from the superficial to the deep can be divided into 3 parts, which are named the neck, the body, and the base. Pay attention to the 2 kinds of gland cells: the sheath cells and the parietal cells. Outside the laminar propria is the muscularis mucosa, which is composed of an inner circular and an outer longitudinal smooth muscle layer. Beneath the mucosa is the submucosa, which consists of loose connective tissue with blood vessel, lymphatic vessel. The third slide: pharyngeal part of stomach, obtained from the section of pharyngeal part of stomach HE staining. On this slide, we can see the two kinds of gland cells. The sieve shells are predominant in the body and the base of gastric gland, which are columnar cells with purple-blue stained basophilic cytoplasm, but owing to the difficult to maintain the cytoplasm granules after death. So the cytoplasm in the section often appears as vacuole. Only the cell base remains strong basophilic. The parietal cells are present mainly in the neck and the body of the glands. These cells are larger than the sheath cells and round or pyramidal in form. The fourth slide, duodenum. Obtained from the cross-section of duodenum H.E. staining. The luminal surface stained purple-blue is tunica mucosa. The mucosa project many delicate and strap-like blue processes named intestinal villi into the lumen. In some places protrude into the lumen, forming placate circularies. The mucosa can be divided into 3 layers from inside to outside. The inner layer is simple columnar epithelium. The layer next to the epithelium is connective tissue called lumina propria, in which a lot of intestinal glands, which arises from the invagination of the epithelium, is simple tubular gland. On the left slide, the round structure with a central hole is the transverse section of the intestinal gland. A thin, smooth muscle layer outside the lumina propria is muscularis mucosa. The epithelium and the lamina propria protrude together into the lumen, forming a willow leaf-shaped structure named villi, the cross-section of which appears as a circular solid structure. Some smooth muscle cells are scattered in the lumina propria. The axis of these smooth muscle cells is parallel to that of the villi. Outside the mucosa is the submucosa, which consists of loose connective tissue with many collagenous fibers, blood vessels, and submucosal nerve plexus. In the duodenum, there are duodenal glands in the submucosa. The cells are pyramidal or hair columnar in shape with blue stained or meshwork-like cytoplasm and flattened rod nuclei in the cellular base. The lumens of acini are open into the intestinal glands. The fifth slide, jejunum, obtained from the section of jejunum H.E. staining. On the slide, there is a prominent protrusion on one side, which is the most developed propria circularis of the small intestine. Many thin strips on the surface are called villi, which are often stained with purplish red. This side is mucosa layer. The light red part below is the submucosa, and the dark red part is the muscularis, and the outermost part is serous mammary. Jejunum shows more and more goblet cells. The lamina propria contains solitary lymphoid nodule jejunum. The submucosa of the jejunum doesn't contain the mucosa duodenal glands. The sixth slide, ileum. obtained from the section of ileum, H.E. staining, distinguish four-layer structure of the ileum. The intestinal wall at low magnification is similar to the jejunum. Its characterized by small mucosal plaque, tepid villus, low and sparse. There are many goblet cells in the epithelium, and there are collecting lymphatic nodules in the lamina propria. In some parts, lymphatic tissues can penetrate into the submucosa, resulting in the incomplete muscularis mucosae. The seventh gland, colon, obtained from the section of the colon, H.E. staining, identify the mucosa, the submucosa, and the muscle layer. Observing carefully, you can see the colon has plaque circulatory but no villi. The mucosa of the colon can also be divided into three layers. The inner layer is simple columnar epithelium with a thin striated border on its surface. The goblet cells are numerous among columnar epithelium cells. The lamina propria contains a lot of intestinal glands, resulted from the invagination of epithelium, which are tubular glands and may be present as longitudinal, oblique, or cross-section of the cells. The lining epithelial cells comprise columnar cells and many goblet cells. The muscellary mucosae is in the outside of the lamina. Sometimes diffuse lymphatic tissue or lymphonodules can be seen in the mucosa or even penetrates into the submucosa. The submucosa consists of loose connective tissue with some fat cells. The local mucosa and submucosa may protrude into the lumen, forming plaque circulars. The muscle layer is composed of an inner circular and an outer longitudinal muscle layer, which is enwrapped by the adventitia of connective tissue. The last slide, appendix, obtained from the cross-section of appendix, H.E. staining. The lumen is small. The lymphatic tissue deeply stained can be seen in the mucosa and the submucosa in this histology slide. The inner layer of mucosa is simple columnar epithelium, which is often incomplete because the epithelium is easy to peel off. The phatic tissue and the lymph nodules, which often penetrated through the muscularis mucosa into the submucosa. So the muscularis mucosae is often interrupted. The thin muscle layer is also composed of an inner circular and an outer longitudinal layer of smooth muscle. Okay, that's all for today. Thank you for your listening.